Hello. Today I'm going to explain how to make direct questions with the two present tenses we've seen so far, so simple present and present progressive. So let's listen up. First of all, how do we make a direct question? It's important to remember that in English, for most direct questions, we need to have an auxiliary. And there are several different words that can be auxiliaries. Today we're going to look at these ones. For the present, do or does, we use those for the simple present. And we also use am, are, and is, which are conjugations of the verb to be in the present, for the present progressive and also for questions with the verb to be. So when do we use do? We use it in the simple present when your subject pronoun is I, you, we, and they. The important thing to remember is that your verb will go back to the base form. However, when you use I, you, we, or they, your verb is already, it looks like it's already in the base form. So I could say, I live in Granby. My question becomes, where do you live? Notice here I have my subject and then my verb, but in my question I have, a question word, and then I have my auxiliary, and then I have my subject and my verb. So I make sure I change the order of the words. Or, we play deck hockey. What sport do you play? So I use do when my subject is you, I, we, or they. When do I use does? We also use does in the simple present, but when the subject pronoun is he, she, or it, or for example a word that these pronouns could replace. For example, if I say the book, then that's saying it. In that case, my verb also comes back to the base form. Here, this one is more challenging for students to remember and to learn properly. But in this one, I could say he plays soccer. So here's my question word. What does he play? You see the S comes from my verb and goes down onto my auxiliary. So I cannot repeat the S two times, so there's no S here. What does he play? It snows in January. Here's the S on my verb when I conjugate it into the simple present. And in my question, I say, when does it snow? Again, I take the S from my verb, it goes onto my auxiliary, and I cannot use it on the verb because I cannot have the S two times. She works on Tuesdays. When does she work? The same principle. The S goes from my verb onto my auxiliary. Do I always need to have an auxiliary? Well, for most direct questions, yes, but there are some exceptions. For example, here, if I say Joseph enjoys swimming, I could ask my question, who enjoys swimming? In that case, the word Joseph and the word who, they both represent the subject of my sentence. So I do not need an auxiliary. But I didn't write the example, but if I said Joseph enjoys swimming, and I want to know about this word, then I would say, what does Joseph enjoy? If I didn't know the answer already. For present progressive questions, we use the auxiliary, the verb to be, in the present form. So I am learning Spanish becomes, what are you learning? Of course, we use you to ask a logical question because if I say I'm learning Spanish, it's not very logical for me to say, what am I learning? It's correct, but it doesn't make sense all the time. So my auxiliary goes before my subject. She is starting a new job at IGA. So here's my subject and then my auxiliary and my verb. When I make my question, I switch them around. So here's my question word. Where is she starting? So I put my auxiliary in front of the subject. When you make a present progressive question with the auxiliary in the verb to be, remember, do not change the verb form. You leave the ing on the verb. So here are some examples. This is the trick that we try to remember is quasvo. So question word, auxiliary, subject, verb, and O, the object, or we can just say the rest of the sentence, but it's easy to say quasvo. So let's have a look at each of these sentences so I can explain them to you. And this one, where does she live? Very basic. The answer would be she lives with the S. So the S is here on my auxiliary. What time are they working tonight? You notice in this one, I have my question word is two words, what time? But my auxiliary is the verb to be. My verb stays the same, still ing. In this one, who is helping the manager? I don't have a subject because this is my subject, my question word. The answer might be Bob is helping the manager. So this is like the example I showed you earlier. The next one, why do we have homework? In this case, have is my verb and do is the auxiliary. So in Canadian and North American English, we don't say, why have we homework or why have we got homework? Oh, well, you can say, why have we got homework? But why do we have homework? How many students are coming to class? This is important because whenever you ask a question with how many, you need to follow it with the subject afterwards, and it's going to be in plural. How many students are coming to class? How often does he watch Netflix? Again, my verb is in the simple present. I use does as my auxiliary because my subject is he, and it would be incorrect to say how often does he watches Netflix. You cannot repeat the S 2 times. And how much time are they taking to do their project? Like how many, when we say how much, we often follow it with the noun. So how much time, how much money do you need, etc. So what is important to remember? It's that most direct questions need an auxiliary. There are several other auxiliaries. This is just the beginning. But if your sentence does not have an auxiliary, you use do or does. And if you have an auxiliary, like the verb to be, so I am, you are, etc., then you use it and you do not change the verb form. So thank you for listening and good luck.